Hi friends, this is Professor Vinod D'Souza, Associate Professor, Department of Civil Engineering, AJ Institute of Engineering and Technology, Mangalore. So we are discussing about the topic called as grouting and injection. In the previous class, we have seen what is the definition of grouting, what do you mean by injection, how the grouting technique will be done, and what are the applications and objectives of grouting. These topics we have covered in the previous classes. Also, we have seen the various aspects of grouting. They are nothing but permeation grouting, compaction grouting, and hydrofracturing. Permeation grouting is nothing but the grout will penetrate into the loose voids in the soil mass, and that's how it will fill all the voids in the soil and it will strengthen the soil. In case of compaction grouting, the grout which is injected inside the soil mass becomes a hard gel and it will exert pressure on the surrounding soil, and that's how it will strengthen or it will increase the shear strength of the soil. And hydrofracturing means here the pressure which is applied will be more than the tensile strength of the rocks, and hence the small cracks will be widened and the grout will penetrate into these cracks, and that's how it will strengthen the rocks. So this is called as aspects of grouting. Also, we have seen what are the requirements required for a grouting, and also we have seen what do you mean by suspension grouts, what do you mean by solution grouts, and what is meant by emulsions. So these topics already we have seen in the previous classes. Now today's class we will start the discussion about the compaction grouts. As I told you, compaction grouting is a technique in that the injecting an expanding bulb of high viscous grout with high internal friction into a compressible soil or into a soil mass containing larger voids. So here this technique involves injecting an expanding bulb. That means we are injecting the grout itself, but it will expand and form a hard bulb, and it will compress the surrounding soil because of the internal friction, and that's how it will fill all the voids, because they here, since it will exert pressure on the surrounding soils, the voids which are there will be filled and the particles will move or displace each other and they will come closer to each other. That's how the soil gets strengthened or shear strength of the soil will be increased. The injected grout acts as a radial hydraulic jack which compresses the surrounding soil and thus achieving the controlled densification. So the grout which is injected will act like a hydraulic jack. Jack means it will exert pressure on the surrounding soils, and that's how we can achieve the required densification. So since here there is a displacement of particles is there, that's why this technique is also called as displacement technique or displacement grouting. When we talk about the conventional penetration grouting, there we are injecting the grout which fills all the openings in the soil and rocks, and that's how it will reduce the permeability and it will increase the strength. Whatever grouts we are injecting, that will penetrate into the voids, and that's how it will increase the strength of the soil. Also it will reduce the permeability. Whereas in compaction grouting, it does not depend upon the grout entering the openings, but involves displacement and compaction of the soil as a result of the intrusion of a mass of thick grout. The materials injected are such that as it enters, it will form a hard bulb. They will not penetrate into the voids or into the loose spaces. They will form a hard bulb, and that's how it will exert the pressure on the surrounding soils. Compaction grouting is applicable to partially saturated cohesives and organic soil masses, silty sands, and soil containing void pockets. If the soil contains large void pockets, it is difficult in the case of permeation grouting. So, when we apply the compaction grouting, all these voids are filled because of the displacement of the soil particles. It is also used to stabilize the soil under residences and high commercial buildings or existing foundations of large structures. So, when we want to strengthen the existing residential building or high like commercial buildings or foundations of large buildings, it is difficult in other process, but whereas in case of compaction grouting, the grout enters and it will form a bulb so that particles will move each other, and that's how it will compact. Immediately the grout becomes hard. That's the advantage of this method. That's why it is used for existing buildings and structures to strengthen the soil. The figure clearly indicates the difference between permeation grouting and the compaction grouting. So if you observe the first figure, here there will be permeation of grout inside the soil mass. The soil mass grout enters the soil mass, and this is called as permeation. And once it permeates, in the second figure we can see how the grout has formed a hard gel, and that's how it will exert pressure on the surrounding soils. This is the difference between the two methods. Also, one more figure here. This procedure you have shown the step-by-step procedure of compaction grouting. Initially, the pipes is inserted inside the soil mass. In the second figure, it shows how the grouts has become the hard mass and how it exert pressure on the surrounding soils. Now, as one step of the grout is injected, we have to take back or we have to remove the pipe, and that's how we have to do the compaction for the uppermost surface. And as we finish the grouting, the entire soil will be compacted, and in the next portion of the soil gets compacted. That's how the entire soil will be compacted, and it will give the required strength. So this is called as a step-by-step procedure of compaction grouting. The various advantages of compaction grouting are: here, minimum risk during construction. The risk involved during construction is less here, because we are not going to remove the soil or we are not inducing the grout step by step procedure. We are inducing the grout, and that grout will become a hard gel. So, no harm to any structure. That's why minimum risk involved during construction. Also, we can achieve greater economy in this method. Greater economy in the sense, we are not disturbing the existing foundations. We are not removing the foundations and laying the new foundations. Only we are inserting the grout inside the soil, and because of that itself the foundation gets strengthened. That's why we will get the increased economy. Also, there will be a minimum disturbance to the structure and surrounding ground during repair. Since we are inserting the pipe to the required depth, and there we are inserting the grout, so there won't be any much disturbance to the structure and surrounding grounds during repair. There won't be much vibrations. There won't be any cracks seen in the adjacent buildings because of this process. It supports all portion of the structure. When we do this grouting, the grout becomes a hard gel, and it will exert pressure on the surrounding soil so that the soil moves and comes closer to each other, and that's how it supports all portion of the structure. It is not like that only one portion of the soil gets strengthened. The strength will be distributed to all over the surface. Reduced need for extensive exploration. Here in this process, we don't have to excavate much to know what is the type of soil available. It may be a coarse grained soil, maybe a fine grained soil, or different types of soil. This technique will be helpful. That's why it reduces need of extensive exploration. We don't have to remove the soil, we don't have to test in the laboratory, nothing required here. So greater flexibility. This method involves economy easy. So here greater flexibility will be there, and in this technique there won't be any harm to the groundwaters. Groundwater will not be affected. So these are the advantages of these techniques. Whereas if we see the disadvantages, relative ineffectiveness in stabilizing near surface soil. This means when we want to stabilize or when we want to strengthen the soil which is near the ground level, this method will not hold good, because since the injected grouse becomes a hard gel and it will exert pressure on the surrounding soil. So near the ground level, what happens is it will exert pressure on the pressure in the upward direction, whereas upward there won't be much soil. That's why it is ineffective in stabilizing the near surface soil. Only effective when we want to strengthen the soil much deeper inside the ground level. Second thing is prohibitive cost for some structures if the soil to be treated is extensively deep. This is also one of the disadvantages. If you want to strengthen the soil with a much depth, then it will prove to be little expensive. Grouting adjustments to unsupported slopes may be ineffective. Okay. Using these techniques, it is difficult to strengthen the unsupported slopes, because slope means it is much soil is not available to strengthen. That's why it is difficult to strengthen the slopes, and difficult to of analyzing the results. When we do the compaction, we cannot predict we are going to get this much strength because of this grouting. That's why it is difficult to predict the results. Not suitable in decomposable material. When we have a decomposable material under the ground, it is not possible to do the grouting by using these techniques. Effectiveness questionable in saturated layers, saturated clays. When the clay is saturated, again it is difficult to grout, because we can't say that it will exert the pressure all around the soils. The soil will not move because of the adsorbed water layers. And danger of filling underground pipes with the grout. If you have any pipelines which runs under the ground, because of this technique, the surrounding soil moves away from each other, and that's how there are chances that it may choke or it may block the underground pipes. So these are the disadvantages of this technique. Various researchers have worked on these techniques, and they have seen how the behavior will occur when we going for this type of techniques, and they have told us these important points has to be noted, and they are: construction procedures significantly affect the improvements achieved, because if you have a proper construction procedure and if you go according to the construction procedure, then we can achieve the significant results. That's one point. Second point is significant increase in penetration resistance could be achieved in soils ranging from slightly silty sand to silt, and the effect in silt is particularly promising, since they have worked with various types of soils and they have found that this method will give us promising results in case of silts or silty sands. In such sands, compaction will be more, hence we get the required results. Ground takes required to produce a specified increase in penetration resistance will be greater than expected based on simple design calculations. It means whatever calculations will do, we can achieve the more good results from this technique. Also, significant economy may be achieved by properly quantifying the distribution of volumetric strain around the ground mass. So if we design and if we do the calculations properly, definitely we can achieve the economy by this technique. So these points has to be kept in mind while we are going for this type of technique. So now we will discuss about the grouting procedure. It means how we can plan this technique and how we can do this, or we can conduct this procedure in the ground, and that is called as grouting procedure. So depending upon the material to be grouted, that means what materials is available for grouting. For example, whether it is a rock or a natural soil or it is a field soil, that depends. Okay, and based on this material, its quality, that means, is there any fissures, is it cracks, is it discontinuous or density, and the purpose of grouting, why we are doing the grouting, that is whether it is required for seepage control or strength of or stabilization. A well planned procedure has been adopted to attain the desired results. So before going for the actual procedure, we have to see what is the materials required to be grouted, what is its quality, what is the quality of this material, whether it has got fissures, whether it has got cracks, whether it is having the discontinuation, or we want to improve the density, and purpose, why we are going to adopt these techniques, that is whether we want to control the seepage or whether we want to increase the strength or solidification. So based on these, we have to plan the technique. A full-fledged pre-grouting site investigation has to be planned and undertaken in order to decide several factors such as grout type, equipments, grouting techniques, etc. Okay. So before going for this method, we have to do the site investigation, and based on the factors available, we have to decide what type of grout is suitable for that material, what type of equipments are required to do this process, and what is the grouting technique adopted. We have various techniques available, okay? And out of which technique suits for this type of soil, that we have to decide, and then we have to go according to that. Based on the nature of work, number of drill holes, depth and pattern have to be decided. Okay? Based on the purpose of work, based on the nature of work, we have to decide how many number of drill holes has to be dug inside the ground level, what should be the depth of these drill holes, and what is the pattern required. These things we have to decide initially itself, otherwise it will take a lot of time to decide this, so that the cost of the work will be increased. Further, an appropriate injection or compaction grouting has to be followed, whether it is injection grouting or compaction grouting, that has to be decided, and proper good injection measurements should be incorporated in the grouting procedure. Once the grouting has done, we want to know what is the amount of grout injected and how much strength may be available. That's why we have various grout injection measurements, and they have to be incorporated in the grouting procedure. So this is the procedure, step by step procedure required while doing the compaction grouting. So in case of pre-grouting site investigations, it is essential to conduct a full site investigation before commencing the grouting operations, so as to decide the method of grouting and the extent of grouting required in a particular location. So we have to go to the site and we have to investigate the site to see what is the method of grouting required here and what is the extent of grout required in a particular location. This grouting may vary from place to place because we have very different types of soils available from one place to another place, and also we have different types of soils from upper to lower layers. So we have to decide properly what is the method of grouting required, so that this grout penetrates into the required place or required location, and then it becomes hardened. And what is the extent of grouting required in a particular location, that has to be decided first. The investigation should include a geological survey and investigation drilling. Okay, both type of survey has to be done. One is geological survey, and second one is surveying or investigation done by drilling the holes. In case of geological survey, it consists of studying the general geology of the area with the help of mapping methods and exploratory drilling to establish fissures, faults, folds, etc. So when we're doing the geological survey, first we have to study the map of that particular area. This map itself tells us what is the soil available there, whether the soil has got any problems, whether the area has got any problems. All these things can be judged, and also we have to drill some exploratory drilling, and by using this exploratory drilling we have to find whether whether the soil contains some fissures, faults, folds, etc. All these are geological features of the soil or site, and this has to be ascertained first. Then the final study reveals the extent of soil and rock formation, zones of weakness, dip and strike, etc. of the ground. Okay. So once we study the geology of the area, we'll come to know what is the soil and rock formation of that area, how that soil is formed, how the rock has formed, what are the causes of weathering, what are the zones of weakness in that rock or in that soil, and also what is the dip and strike of that ground. So it is essential features required for the compaction grouting. Later we have to do the detailed exploration, and this detailed exploration will be carried out by drilling the holes by using a suitable methods and taking the soil sample, and then testing these samples to determine the shear strength, grain size and permeability in the precise location where grouting has to be effected. So whenever we want to do the grouting for a particular area, from that area we have to remove the sample from the particular depth, and we should know what is the existing shear strength of that soil, what is the permeability in that location, and what is the grain size distribution in that location, because we are doing the grouting and this grout has to penetrate inside the soil mass. That's why we should know all these parameters. In addition to this, field permeability test is a must to facilitate more precise estimate about this is required to decide the pumping pressure, grouting pattern and type of grout. Permeability test can be conducted in the laboratory, and also we have to conduct the permeability test in the field itself, because if we do this test in the field, we'll come to know what type of pumping pressure is required to penetrate the grout, what is the grout pattern required, and what is the type of grout required to inject inside the soil mass. Okay, these are the details required in case of pre-grouting site investigations. So let's have a discussion about the grout hole pattern. So this grouting may be of shallow depth with low pressure or deeper depth with high pressure. When we are doing the grouting with a shallow depth, this low pressure is sufficient, whereas when we are doing the grouting for much deeper layers, then we require a much higher pressure, so that the grout has to penetrate inside the soil mass. The shallow grouting is done first to seal all major cavities and consolidated rock, and then deep grouting is undertaken. First the shallow grouting is done so that all the major cavities are filled in a soil and consolidated rock, and then we can go for a deep grouting. This field permeability log helps in deciding the zones to be grouted, the type of grout to be used, and the possible extent of grout penetration under a given pressure. To decide what type of grout is required to use, what is the possible extent of grout penetration under the given pressure, all this can be decided based on the field permeability. That's why along with the laboratory permeability test, we have to conduct the field permeability test, so that we will come to know exact values of permeability, so that we can decide what type of grout is required and how much pressure should be applied, so that these grouts will penetrate inside the soil mass. Ideally, the spacing of grout holes should follow a grid pattern such that the radius of penetration is sufficient to cause slight overlap between the adjacent holes. Here in the figure it shows that first we have to do the grouting for the cylindrical spaces, and later in the secondary we have to fill the gap between these secondary holes. That's how we can cover the entire area by using this grouting techniques. A second and subsequent off grid size is then injected to fill the spaces between adjacent columns. Sometimes a third and quarter size grids is required to achieve the target. This is how we have to do the grouting. First we have to grout the full cylinders, then second we have to fill the half size grids, sometimes in third quarter size grids. Okay, likewise you have to see that the grout penetrates the entire portion of the soil. As a preliminary guidance, the spacing of the grout holes may be given in the next table. We will discuss it later. However, this will very much depend on the viscosity of the grout. Okay, whatever grout pattern will follow, important factor which decide is called as the viscosity of the grout. If the grout is having the less viscosity, that means less resistance, it will easily penetrate inside the soil. After fixing the length, breadth and depth of the zone, the quantity of grout should be calculated. Initially we have to calculate what should be the length, what should be the breadth and what should be the depth of the zone required, and based on these data we have to calculate how much quantity of grout is required to be penetrated, so that we can keep the amount of grout ready during the compaction or during the grouting. The total volume of grout required depends on the voids ratio of the zone to be grouted and the conditions prevailing during execution, such as groundwater, fissures, etc. Sometimes there will be more groundwater, so that whatever injected materials, there are chances that it will be washed away along with the water. There will be fissures more deeper, so that ground will penetrate more inside the ground level. So based on all these factors, we have to decide the total volume of grout required and we have to keep it ready. An exact quantity of grout requirement cannot be planned in the beginning of the project. We won't be knowing how much water table is there below the ground level, because grouting will be done much deeper inside the ground level. Also, we won't be knowing what is the size of these fissures, what is the thickness, what is the depth of these fissures. If the fissures are having more depth, then more grout will penetrate inside this, so we require huge quantity of grout. That's why sometimes it is not possible to calculate the quantity, exact quantity, beginning of the project. This table shows the various grout hole patterns which has to be adopted. The first column shows coefficient of permeability of the zone. The values are in terms of millimeter per second. Second column shows the grid spacing in meters, and third shows the soil type. If the coefficient of permeability is greater than 1, then the grid spacing of 6 meter is sufficient, and this is applicable for fissured rocks. If the coefficient of permeability is between 1 to 1 into 10 to the power minus 1, then we have to go for a grid spacing of 3 meters, and this is possible in case of medium coarse sands and gravels. And when the permeability is less than 10 to the power minus 1, then we require a more close spacing, which will be of 0.15 to 1 meters, and this will occur in case of fine sands where permeability will be less, and since the grout will not penetrate easily inside the soil, so we require a closer spacing, and the spacing will be around 0.5 to 1 meters. The grout holes are generally vertical, but sometimes inclined holes are also made to meet some objectives. Normally we have to see that the grout holes will be vertical, so that grout will flow easily inside the soil, but sometimes when we want to do the grouting for existing structures, vertical grout holes are not possible. In that cases we may go for inclined holes, so that we have to meet the required objective. Inclined holes are made to ensure that maximum number of joints or bedding planes are intersected by a specific length of grout hole and beneath the building foundations. That's why, as I've told you, incline holes are required to ensure the grout will flow inside the existing building foundations or for a specified length of grout holes. Oblique holes are usually made with an angle not exceeding 15 degree or so to the vertical. Okay, along these inclined holes are made with an angle of 15 degree or so. Depth of grout hole varies from 20% of the hydrostatic head in hard rock to 70% of this in poor rocks. Grout holes are drilled with rotary drilling or percussion drilling. Initially, we have to drill the grout holes, and that can be done by using this technique called as rotary drilling or percussion drillings. In these hole drilling, no samples are taken. Okay, we know that in rotary drilling or percussion drilling, it is not able to remove the samples. However, it is advisable that a small percentage of grout holes be cored or cased so that same can be obtained. Some sample can be obtained to test in the laboratory. In rocks, the grout holes are always washed out and pressure tested. Always these grout holes are always washed and later the pressure is tested in case of rocks. So these are the following are the grout characteristics which are required during the grouting. First one is, in order to obtain the desired effects, the grout should not set quickly because this may affect the pumping, but should set and harden after the completion of the pumping. So it indicates that the grout should not set quickly. When we do the pumping or when we inject in the grout, it should not set quickly. It has to reach its destination and then it has to harden. Otherwise, it will be a problem for pumping the grout. The chances that the pumps may get blocked or choked. So to avoid that, we should see that the grout will not set quickly. The viscosity and subsequent rate of hardenings are regulated frequently during pumping by addition of additives. We can add some admixtures to the pump to the grout during pumping so that we can retard the rate of hardenings. If you know that the grout is going to harden quickly, then the rate of hardenings can be delayed or retarded by adding some chemicals or admixtures. The fluid viscosity gradually changes with time as chemical reaction takes place to transform the grout from a liquid stage into a gel stage. The fluid viscosity gradually changes with time. Okay, the viscosity will depends on time because the chemical reaction is going to take place, that is the transpiration from grout to form a gel. Some grouts react in minutes while others may take even 24 hours to develop the maximum viscosity. Okay, it depends on the type of grout material what we are going to adopt. Some may set or some may react within a minute or some may take around 24 hours to develop this viscosity. Clay suspensions with bentonites have thixotropic properties, that is they behave like a fluid when in movement. Thixotropic property means they behave like a fluid when in movement and form a jelly when stationary, and this transformation is reversible. Suspension of solid particles in water such as clay, cement, bentonite, plaster, PFA, emulsions such as vitamin in water and solutions which react after injection exhibit the same characteristics. Following principle has to be chosen to choose the required grout. That is, the grout must be able to penetrate the voids of the mass to be injected. That is, a cement grout or flocculating chemical grout may get filtered in a fine sand. The grout should be resistant to chemical attack when in place. But to see that whatever grout we are going to inject, there won't be any chemical attack on these grouts. If there is attack from chemicals, then the reaction will change and this grout will not become a hard mass. The grout should be able to develop sufficient shear strength to withstand the hydraulic gradient imposed during injection and on flowing groundwater. Okay. The ground should be able to develop sufficient shear strength to withstand the hydraulic gradient imposed during injection and on flowing groundwater. There are chances that we may meet with the groundwater below the foundation level, and in the groundwater also the grout should be able to develop the shear strength. This principle has to be followed while choosing the required grout. We'll see now the discussion about the grouting plants and equipments. What type of plant required for grouting and what are the various equipments required for grouting? We'll discuss about this. Both suspension and solution grouts use the same mixing plants and delivery systems, and they differ mainly in their storage and mixing configurations. Maybe a suspension grout or maybe a solution grout, but here the machineries and plants required are almost same, only they are varying with the storage and mixing configurations. Okay. Regarding the storage of chemicals, so separate system of storing plant is required for cement, also separate required for chemicals. Also we require separate systems of mixing cement with water or chemicals with water. That's why a grouting plant includes a mixer where the grouts can be mixed thoroughly, a agitator where all the bigger particles can be made into a fine powder, a pump which is required to pump the mix inside the soil, and pipe connected to the grout holes. These are the essential things required for any grouting plant. There is mixer, agitator, pump and pipings. There is two systems, that is one is single line pipe type and circulating type for pipings are available in the plant. Okay, already also they are shown in the following figure. They are named as single line type and circulating type. The difference between these two is, in the circulating type, the unused grout is returned to the agitator, and in the single line type, the grout refused is wasted. There is only the difference between these two techniques. In the circulated type, there will be a circulation, and once the grout which is unused, which cannot enter inside the soil mass, will be returned to the agitator, and once again the same grout can be used. Whereas in case of single line type, the grout which is reused is wasted because there is no circulatory system available in such techniques. For solution grouts, separate ingredients are stored in stationary tanks or tank trucks and metered out on a flow volume basis. That is for solution grouts. They are mixed at junction points and delivered to the intended ground pipe. Okay. They are mixed at the junction points where it is desired, and then they are delivered to the intended grout pipes. The grout pipes are connected in a manifold system, but each is separately valved so that the rate of control is obtained over their flow. This is a technique adopted in case of groutings. Here we can see the grouting plant or schematic diagram of the grouting plant, where You can see here, this is the water meter for measuring water. Here we have the water meter which measures the quantity of water into the mixer, and the same thing goes through pipeline which comes to the grout mixer, where here the grout is mixed along with the water, and once the mixing is done, then it is taken, grout is discharged from the mixer to the agitator in batches, where you can see here there is the agitator tank is there. Through this agitator the grout comes in batches, and here the grout is agitated and made powder form, and then it returns section to the circulated pipe. It goes to the circulated pipe and it goes connected to which is connected to a pump, and from this pump it is goes to the forward section to the circulator to the line, and then it comes to the standby fittings and then grout hole, and then the grout comes out. This is the technique, or this is a plant which is erupted, and there is one more line which goes, you can see. So the pipe grout which rejects goes back and again goes to the agitators, again comes back to the same system. Okay? So this is called as circulating systems. So here the basic items required for a grouting plant and their functions are: we require a measuring tank to control the volume of grout to be injected. Initially we will get that measuring tank by which we can measure how much amount of grout has to be mixed into the water. We require a mixer to mix the grout ingredients. If there is one or two separate mixes, grouts are there, we can mix them in a mixer. Then we require an agitator to keep the solid particles in suspension until pumped. Okay, and this process is not required for chemical grout, because in chemical grouts we won't get any solid particles, whereas in case of suspension grouts we will get the solid particles. To keep this solid particle under suspension, we require the agitator. We require a pump to draw the grout from the agitator to deliver to the pumping line. That's why we require a pump, and then control fittings to control the injection rate and pressure, so that the hole can be with water and thin grout. So these are the basic grouting plants and their functions. So it is always necessary that a thoroughly mixing is done in 3 stages. When you do this mixing, it has to be done in following 3 stages. The first is formation of a vortex, which acts as a centrifugal separator. Thickened grouts and unmixed cement are pushed to the periphery of the vortex and pushed to the mixing rotor. In the second stage, treatment of thicker fraction and unmixed cement from the vortex. These are subjected to a violent shearing action in a mixed rotor, which breaks up thicker fraction and lumps of cement and wets and produces a grout assembling like a colloidal solution rather than a mechanical suspension. And in third step, circulation of the treated fraction back to the vortex continues to spin till all the thickened fraction of cement lumps are broken and the entire grout reaches at uniform consistency. These are the procedure required in case of grouting. So always in a grouting plant, the following precautions are taken while mixing a grout. As first one, water is placed first in the mixer. We should not put the grout directly into the mixer. First water should be placed in the mixer. Then mixer is run at the maximum speed before adding the cement. Okay, we have to operate the mixer with its full speed so that later the cement should be added. Otherwise what will happen is if it runs initially in the slow mode, then cement will not mix properly with the water. Then grout is mixed in batches. We should not put the entire quantity of grout at a single stage. It should be done in batches. Small quantities has to be taken and then they are mixed and then they are sent to the pump and it is pumped. Ingredients have to be measured by volume. Here, whatever ingredients we have taken, those ingredients we have to measure by its volume, not by its weight. Enough water should be maintained to cover the rotor while it is functioning. You should be very careful to see that enough water is present in the motor, otherwise it will damage the motor. Mixer should not be allowed to run for more than few minutes between the batches, and mixers should be cleaned thoroughly after the day's work. Once the day's work is over, the mixer should be thoroughly cleaned. All the cement particles has to be removed, otherwise these cement particles will stick the sides and it will become hard. So later it will be difficult to mix it thoroughly. So these precautions has to be taken for mixing any type of grout. A barrel type grout mixer consists of a cylindrical drum placed either horizontal or vertical with an axial shaft fitted with pedals or blades. The axial shaft is rotated normally or by power. This is a technique of mixing the grout. The axial shaft is rotated normally or by using some power electricity. Cement and water are thoroughly mixed with the help of paddles. A grout mix should be continuously agitated to prevent the setting. If we don't agitate this, the particles will set and will become hard. That's why the agitator is required here. This is achieved by an agitator sump between the mixer and the pump. An agitator sump is a tank which has an agitating mechanism consisting of a vertical shaft to which horizontal blades are connected, which is revolved with a speed of 30 to 100 rpm. Okay. With the speed they will rotate, and you'll see that this suspension or cement particles will not settle down. They will keep in the suspension form, because we know that cement will not entirely solve in the water. That's why we are required to keep these particles under suspension. The grout mix from the mixer is passed to the wire screen to remove piece of sacks, strings and other foreign matters. Also, another screen is fixed to the agitator near the delivery pipe to prevent entering the lumps of the pump. A graduated dipstick is used to measure the quantity of grout in this situation. Okay, you can see the figure shows the process of paddles where the grout delivers, water enters, water meter is there, and the cement enters, water enters here, cement enters, and they all keep under agitating, and later it goes to the motors. This is vertical and horizontal system we can see.